Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. Christmas Eve should have been filled with joy, laughter, and family warmth in our cozy living room adorned with twinkling lights and a towering pine tree. Amanda had outdone herself this year, or so I thought. The scent of mulled wine mingled with the fresh pine, setting a festive mood. Our kids, Ella and Max, were bubbling with excitement, their eyes wide with the magic of the season. "Tonight's going to be special, you'll see," Amanda whispered to me as she adjusted the red bow on Ella's dress. Her smile was radiant, her energy infectious, and for a moment, all felt right. To make the evening more enchanting, we had asked my grandfather, whom the kids adored, to dress as Santa Claus. He was a spry old man with a twinkle in his eye, always ready for a bit of mischief. His arrival was met with shrieks of delight from Ella and Max as he ho-ho-hoed his way into our living room with a sack of presents. "Santa," they chorused, tugging at his costume, as he settled his frame onto our plush sofa, his belly jiggling like a bowlful of jelly from the laughter that echoed around the room. Amanda squeezed my hand, leaning close. "This is perfect, isn't it?" she murmured, her breath warm against my cheek. I nodded, caught up in the perfect picture of our family, momentarily pushing aside the lingering suspicions that had tormented me for months. As the night progressed, the kids unwrapped their gifts with fervor, paper and ribbons flying in all directions. Eventually, their energy waned, and they were ushered to bed, dreams of sugar plums likely dancing in their heads. Amanda insisted on cleaning up, sending me off to relax. Grateful, I retreated to our bedroom but found myself restless, unable to shake off the unease that clung to me like a shadow. Deciding to check if Amanda needed help, I headed back downstairs. The sight of an empty living room, save for the scattered remains of festive wrapping, was puzzling. The silence was unnerving. Soft, erratic sounds led me toward the guest room, a sliver of light spilling through the slightly ajar door. Pushing it open, the scene before me halted everything. There, in the dim glow of the Christmas lights strung around the window, was my grandfather, still clad in his Santa suit, minus the beard, his ho-ho-ho now grotesque in its context. And Amanda, in a state of disarray, wrapped not in festive paper but in betrayal. The shock was like ice water to my face, freezing me in place as I watched the unthinkable unfold on what should have been the most wonderful night of the year. Anger, humiliation, and heartbreak fused into a toxic cocktail that coursed through my veins, propelling me forward with a cold, calculated fury. "What the hell is this?" My voice was a venomous whisper, slicing through their fog of deceit. They sprang apart, guilt written all over their faces. "A mistake." Amanda stammered, her words crumbling into meaningless fragments. My grandfather, usually a man of many words, had none now. He averted his gaze, the shame momentarily overshadowing his usual charismatic bravado. "This? A mistake?" I repeated, my voice rising. "On Christmas? With my wife?" The weight of the betrayal sank in, grounding my next actions in a resolve as cold as the winter air outside. "This is over, Amanda. We're done." Her protests fell on deaf ears. The festive lights mocked me with their cheer as I stormed out, the image of her betrayal searing into my memory. Christmas was supposed to be a time for family, for joy, for togetherness. Instead, it became the stage for the unraveling of my marriage, the tearing of trust, and the plotting of a revenge as chilling as the season itself. As I packed a bag with trembling hands, the resolve hardened. Amanda and my grandfather had unwrapped more than just gifts tonight, they'd unraveled the very fabric of our family. And for that, there would be consequences. The bitter chill of the winter night mirrored the frost in my heart as I drove away from the house, the image of Amanda's betrayal replaying relentlessly in my mind. The empty streets were lined with houses glowing with holiday cheer, a stark contrast to the dark storm brewing inside me. I couldn't go far, I needed a plan, and for that, I needed clarity. I found myself pulling into the parking lot of an all-night diner, a beacon of fluorescent light in the sea of festive darkness. The bell above the door jingled mockingly as I entered, the warmth of the place doing little to thaw my frozen state. I chose a secluded booth at the back, away from the few scattered patrons lost in their own late-night reveries. A weary waitress approached, her smile automatic. "What can I get you, hon?" "Coffee." "Black," I replied, my voice flat. She nodded, her eyes flickering with a hint of concern before she retreated. As I waited, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Amanda. Ignoring the calls, I focused on the swirling steam rising from the cup the waitress had placed in front of me. The heat from the coffee seared my lips, a stark reminder of the raw emotions I was trying to suppress. When the calls didn't stop, I finally answered, my voice a low growl. "What?" "Please, let's talk about this." Amanda's voice was shaky, desperate. "Talk. Like how you were talking to my grandfather in our guest room." My words were laced with venom. "It's not what you think, Save it, Amanda. We're beyond explanations." I cut her off, my resolve hardening. "I want a divorce. Clean and quick. You'll hear from my lawyer. But the kids. We'll be better off without this charade." The finality in my voice silenced her sobs. Hanging up, I felt a perverse sense of relief mixed with an all-consuming anger. The coffee no longer appealed to me, the bitterness was enough in my mouth. Leaving some bills on the table, I headed out, my mind racing with what to do next. The drive back home was automatic, my thoughts on the legal and personal ramifications of the night's revelations. I needed evidence, undeniable proof of her infidelity to ensure the divorce swung in my favor. I arrived back home to a dark and silent house. Amanda had taken refuge in our room, the door closed. Ignoring the urge to confront her again, I went to the guest room. There, amidst the chaos of earlier, I began my search. Photos, videos, anything that could serve as evidence. After a thorough search, I found it, a small, hidden camera we had installed for security, forgotten in the festive rush. My heart pounded as I retrieved the footage, the digital proof of Amanda's betrayal now in my hands. With the evidence secured, I spent the rest of the night in the living room, planning my next steps. The sunrise did nothing to warm the cold dawn as I dialed the number of the best divorce lawyer in town. "Good morning, this is Jacob Stern. How can I assist you?" "Good morning, Mr. Stern. I need your help with a divorce case. It's urgent." As I detailed the situation, omitting no detail of the betrayal or the evidence I had gathered, Mr. Stern's professional detachment provided a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. "We can file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. With the evidence you've collected, it should be straightforward." "Thank you, Mr. Stern. I want this handled quickly and quietly." "Understood. We'll begin immediately." Hanging up, the finality of the steps I had set in motion weighed heavily on me. This Christmas had marked the end of my marriage, but it was also the beginning of a new, albeit uncertain, chapter. As the legal gears began to turn, I steeled myself for the fallout. Amanda's betrayal would not go unanswered, and my revenge, though cold, would be just. The sharp staccato of my footsteps echoed down the stark, polished corridors of Stern law offices. The receptionist offered a brief, sympathetic smile as she ushered me into a spacious conference room where Jacob Stern awaited, his presence commanding yet reassuring. "Good to see you again, although I wish it were under better circumstances," he greeted, gesturing toward the leather chairs across from his desk. I nodded, the weight of the impending legal battle settling heavily on my shoulders. "We've prepared the initial divorce filings based on the grounds of infidelity. Here are the papers," Jacob said, sliding a thick folder across the table. The reality of the situation, contained in those crisp, legal documents, made my heart sink even further. As I flipped through the pages, each clause a silent testament to the crumbling of my marriage, Jacob detailed the strategy. Once we file these, the court will serve Amanda with the divorce papers. Given the evidence you've provided, we should expect a favorable outcome. What about custody? I asked, the thought of my kids caught in this mess tightening my chest. We'll push for full custody. It's clear the environment Amanda has fostered is not conducive to healthy upbringing, Jacob explained with a clinical precision that belied the emotional turmoil such decisions wrought. Nodding, I felt a mix of relief and dread. And how soon will she be served? By tomorrow morning. I suggest you prepare yourself for her reaction. It won't be pleasant. The drive back home was a blur, my mind preoccupied with the impending confrontation. As I pulled into the driveway, the sight of Amanda's car sparked a flare of anxiety. This was it, the moment of truth. I found her in the kitchen, a facade of normalcy as she cooked dinner, perhaps a last-ditch effort to sway my decisions. The aroma of roasted chicken filled the air, a stark contrast to the cold silence that hung between us. Amanda, I started, my voice firm despite the shaking of my hands. You'll be served divorce papers tomorrow. I've filed on the grounds of infidelity. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. You can't do this to me, to us. Think about the kids. The kids are exactly why I'm doing this. They need stability, Amanda, something you've shattered with your actions, I countered, the bitter truth lacing every word. How dare you judge me, she spat, her face a mask of anger and disbelief. You think you're perfect? That you've been the perfect husband? This isn't about me, I said, stepping closer, the papers in my hand a tangible symbol of the finality of our marriage. This is about what you did. What you chose to do. Amanda's eyes welled with tears, her anger dissolving into desperate pleading. Please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, do anything. It's too late for that, I interrupted, my own voice catching with a mixture of fury and sorrow. I've made my decision. The lawyer will handle everything from here. Turning away, I left her sobbing in the kitchen, the sound a painful reminder of the life we were leaving behind. But with each step I took, I felt a hardening resolve to see this through, to secure a better future for my children, away from the lies and betrayal. That night, as I lay awake, the house around me felt larger, emptier. The decision to divorce, though justified, did not bring peace. Instead, it was a necessary step on a path lined with thorns, one I was prepared to walk, driven by a need for retribution and the hope of eventual healing. The final hearing was a cold, sterile affair, as the courtroom buzzed with the muted whispers of a subdued audience. As I sat waiting for the proceedings to begin, my mind was eerily calm, focused only on the outcome I had orchestrated with meticulous precision. Amanda entered the courtroom, her posture defeated, her eyes avoiding mine. Beside her, my once beloved grandfather now looked frail, the weight of his betrayal etching deep lines into his face. They sat together, a visual reminder of the treachery that had linked them. Jacob Stern patted my shoulder, a silent gesture of support as the judge called the room to order. We are here to finalize the divorce proceedings between Mr. and Mrs. Daniels. Mr. Daniels has filed on the grounds of infidelity, supported by substantial evidence. Mrs. Daniels, do you contest these grounds? Amanda's voice was barely audible. No, Your Honor, I do not contest. The judge nodded, his gaze stern. Let's proceed with the testimonies. As the hearing unfolded, my lawyer presented the video evidence, the room falling into a shocked silence as the footage played. Amanda's infidelity, once a private agony, was now a public spectacle. Her face flushed with shame, her hands trembling. When it was her turn to speak, Amanda's voice broke. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I am sorry, not just because I was caught, but because of the pain I've caused. The sincerity in her tone might have once stirred my sympathy, but not anymore. I watched her, my face an unreadable mask, waiting for my moment. Your Honor, if I may. I stood, my voice steady. I want to address the court. Permission granted, I began, not with the words of a scorned husband, but with the cold clarity of revenge. This betrayal wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a choice, a series of choices that broke our family. I cannot forgive, and I will not forget. Turning to Amanda, I continued, you chose this path, not just with anyone, but with my own grandfather. You've destroyed the sanctity of our family. Then, addressing the judge, I asked not only for the dissolution of our marriage but also for full custody of our children. They deserve a stable, honest environment, one that the person beside me cannot provide. Amanda sobbed, her plea for mercy lost in the echoes of her deceit. My grandfather remained silent, his head bowed in shame. The judge delivered his verdict swiftly, granting me full custody and finalizing the divorce. Let this be a lesson on the consequences of betrayal, he admonished. Outside the courtroom, the air was cold, biting, yet I felt a burning clarity. Amanda approached, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry, truly. Can we not part ways in peace? Peace? I scoffed. You chose this end when you betrayed me with my grandfather. There is no peace after such deceit. With those final words, I turned away, leaving Amanda and the ruins of our past behind. I had won, but the victory was hollow. The price of betrayal was high, and its payment left nothing but ashes. As I walked out of the courthouse, a new realization dawned on me. Revenge had consumed me, yes, but it had also freed me. I was free to rebuild, to give my children a future unmarred by the shadows of deceit. And for the first time in months, a genuine smile crept across my face, not out of spite, but out of hope for the new life that lay ahead.